Yes, Hot and Tech back at it. Jesse K, Tat Wizard, here to expand the horizon if possible. Okay, today we want to talk about Panorama Music Festival that just happened. Music, art, and tech all at the same time. It was a great experience. First time in New York City. The creators of Coachella put it together. And today in the building we have JB, who helped put together the lab from the Panorama Music Festival. How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Yes. Now, I messed up a little and I said the dome because that's what it was being called out there. It was in a enclosed dome, air conditioned. Thank you for that, by the way.
My pleasure.
And it showed off 7 pieces of art that were mixed with technology. How did you put that together?
Well, there were 3 main elements. There was the facade, which at night got projection mapped, but by day looked pretty hot as well. Then there was the exhibition, which was actually a tent around the dome. It was a 150 by 30 foot tent that had it had 6 different interactive installations and then 3 different HP areas. And then the 7th interactive installation was actually temporary pop-up in the dome that we did 3 times a day for half an hour, and that was the Cotton Candy Universe. So that was Emily Baltz's, it's a cotton candy theremin that she turned into a 360-degree spherical experience.
Oh, wow.
And then to cap it all off, we had the full dome show, which was a 13-minute custom show that was created by Invisible Light Network and Dirt Empire on the animation side.
I really love that.
And then the sound design was done by Ant Food. So 100% of what we brought to the table was New York City creative technologists.
Dope.
And how did you decide what to put into this whole project, and how did the project all ultimately end up coming together?
Well, I wanted to celebrate both the thriving New York City creative arts technology community and also make sure that we were touching on all of the best festival-ready creativity.
This was the first time Panorama was in New York City. From what I can tell, it's a huge success, the creators of Coachella. So now, hopefully, New York will have its own music festival yearly. Are you looking to do this again next year? And if you do, are you going to keep it the way it was this year? Or are you going to expand it to not just tech and art, but more tech or just art or so forth like that?
Well, the festival was originally supposed to be on the World's Fairgrounds in Queens,
right.
And it got moved last minute. So hopefully, if Panorama comes back next year, it's back at the home venue where it was always intended to be. The World's Fairgrounds obviously would be absolutely incredible. It's a lot more space. It's more beautiful. And yeah, I think the idea is to keep pushing the envelope. It wouldn't be a tech-driven festival if we weren't constantly innovating. I doubt you'll see, the same skeletal structure of the lab next year with new stuff. I think what we do next year will be considerably bigger and better.
I saw in New Yorker that they were talking about how instead of a stage, they built this whole tech component. Do you think that actually adds to the experience, or do you think there should be more music?
I think what was so special about Panorama was that it was designed for New York City. And so because New York City is so tech-driven and so fashion-driven and sophisticated, we tried to create a festival that was of New York City. So if the festival was in the middle of Spain, I don't know that technology would make sense. I think, or even at Coachella for that matter. I think what makes Coachella work so well is that it's of the environment. I think what makes Burning Man you couldn't put Burning Man on Randall's Island. That would be insane. And I think that's what we were trying to do, was to fashion a festival that fits. My pitch when I pitched AEG on the concept was, let's do this in New York, but then let's tour it globally, where we do the same thing, but do it local to that community. So when we do it in London, we get the 10 hot shit creative technologists in London. When we do it in Barcelona, when we do it in LA, et cetera, so that way we can have essentially a global footprint, but have a very localized feel to each event.
And is that happening? It's going global? It's going to tour different cities and so forth?
We will find out.
Okay, we will find out.
That's the intent from the beginning.
Okay, dope. Did you have a favorite piece at the lab?
Yeah, my favorite piece was
The whole
watching
thing.
people's faces.
Okay.
That was, probably our biggest attribute that we were looking for when we were curating the specific pieces that went into it was how much joy is this going to generate in the participant. And if you just walked around that place, it was just faces of joy everywhere you looked. And there wasn't a dud,
No.
There were some highlights, but there wasn't like it's
Yeah,
all right. I mean,
right.
every single thing knocked it out of the park. And then, a lot of people didn't even know. A lot of people thought they were in the dome, and that the entry to the dome was the exit out.
My favorite one was I forget the name of the piece itself, but it was like a bouncy house that was created music.
Visceral Recess by Future Wife.
Right, the visceral recess. So you go inside, and yes, you could just jump around, but if you move it, it wasn't like an open bouncy house. It was kind of enclosed, and if the walls, you moved a certain way, and the floors, it would create a certain sound effect. And I became my own composer, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was actually running through a Moog Voyager in real time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so what you were doing were changing the oscillators
Right.
and envelope filters on a Moog in real time.
Wow, dope.
Do you think there'd be more use for practical tech at a festival? Tad and I were talking, and it just felt like
Like some VR or, just something that is new technology that the masses may not have necessarily seen or touched yet, but just technology, no art.
Well, listen, obviously when we set out to do this thing, VR is the hottest topic in the game right now.
Yeah.
But me, as the head curator and designer of this thing, I'm adamantly against doing VR in a public environment because it doesn't work. You get crazy long lines. People
that's
fumble
true.
around, but more than anything else, it's an isolating technology. You put that headset on, you're disconnected from the world.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of doing VR, we did the Dome, which is VR content. It's fully spherical 360 content.
Yeah.
But you can
It
sit
did-
there with 300 people.
Yeah, it
And
did have a VR-ish feeling
well,
to
but
it.
we're going to release what we made in VR.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
in my mind, if we're going to do a communal experience at a festival, it has to be something you can feel in your heart with all the other people. And VR doesn't do that. Maybe there's a way to do VR in the future, but it was very much a conscious, purposeful thing to not do VR and make a statement by having the Dome.
That makes sense. Thoroughly enjoyed this year's. Look forward to next year's, and hopefully maybe even we can work something out for a summer jam or one of the big festivals or music experiences that Hot 97 has, and get it popping and show people what tech and art really can do.
Love to, man. Love to.
All right, cool.
thanks a lot, JB, for coming out, and really salute you for a hugely successful weekend.
Someone finally gave me a budget.